Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 243 of Red Wings Rant, where tirades and impassioned pleas for your Detroit Red Wings finally have a home. Today, of course, as the overlay suggests, we will be doing our draft preview to nobody because there's nobody watching. Anyways, maybe we shouldn't tell people that we're going to definitely record on Wednesday and then 3 days later be like, hey, can we record on Tuesday, please? Would someone like to own up to that live on the... Oh, he can't because he's muted.
No! I guess that was you owning up to it. You're the only one talking. So, Matt, this is all your fault.
Anyways. Mike, we
Yes.
want to talk about the NHL draft, but we did have some... You didn't get an opportunity to discuss this outside of us taking a look at what was available for the Detroit Red Wings and saying this is probably what's going to happen. So, before we jump into the draft preview, Mike,
sir,
we have Derek LaLonde as our new head coach.
Oh, boy.
First of all, shout out Curtis, first one in the chat, but Curtis absolutely called this. How long ago? Maybe let's see. He's doing story time with a 14-month-old. Much respect, Curtis. I am skipping story time to do this right now, so I'm a real piece of garbage with the 13-month-old. Look at that, Curtis. We're right there in line. But Curtis called this a while back. Curtis, very well done. I mean, honestly, we were sitting there playing the game of trying to overthink everything. And ultimately, Mike, we did some fantasy booking that we weren't proud of. Maybe not. No, we were proud of it. We just, we weren't happy with the end result. And what's funny is I recorded here's Derek LaLonde, like preview, I don't know, like 10 minutes by myself after we make the signing. And then it was brought up. It was brought up by our buddy Anthony, who he's only been able to listen to the podcast. He, of course, is from Australia, so it's tough for him to catch the lives.
Yeah.
But he said, turns out you guys went in completely different directions for Matt's recorded episode, his little 10 minutes, and then I followed it up with our hour-long pre-LaLonde hire, and we both were. I would say it was more sour grapes for not getting Gronborg. Like, we were just kind of looking at it like, well, yeah, I guess LaLonde's going to get signed. And it's nothing against LaLonde. I think this is... I'm going to speak for you, and then I'll give you a chance. But I figured it was because we were so excited about the way we fantasy booked this new head coach, and now it was just going to be Derek LaLonde. And when I say just,
yeah,
I kind of, you know what? I said this in my 10-minute preview. For anybody who missed it, he is, again, the house that checks off all the boxes. He is not the house that has a hot tub out back, bowling alley in the basement, like theater seating and like a fake theater with like a projector already pre-built in the basement. Like, no, that's not what Derek LaLonde is. Derek LaLonde was, you wanted to make sure there were 3 bedrooms, that you had at least 1.5 baths, because sometimes when you're playing video games, you got to take a twosie, so you need a bathroom close to the living room. Like, that's Derek LaLonde. He's your twosie close to the living room kind of house. And that's great. Who doesn't want that? But is it like, are you going to call mom and dad and say, I did it, I got the house? No, you're not. You're going to be content, and you're immediately going to start thinking about how can you improve this house. How'd you like that?
My thoughts were, he seems like a guy who has impeccable tax returns. I feel like there's never a single detail out of place. I feel like his favorite food is probably the turnip.
Yep.
Not an exciting food, but, not a lot of people's favorite food. But, it's got some nutrition. It's pretty sturdy. Grows in a lot of climates. So it can really thrive anywhere. But I guess joking aside, besides calling him an accountant, a turnip eating accountant, Derek LaLonde, based on his interviews, I mean, this is a guy who Ken Cal pointed out. Yzerman is, time is a flat circle for Yzerman because now he's hired this guy twice. He hired him in Florida. Now he's hiring him again in Michigan. In Detroit. With a lot more responsibility.
Quick pause. I want to say hello. So get your thoughts together. Brandis is aboard. You could finally make it. What's going on, Brandis? Johnny P, of course, performance art to all the long time.
Johnny performance art. Yeah.
Johnny performance art. How are you doing? Murdoch, what's going on? And I did want to point this out too, because this is kind of in line with what you were talking about. Back to Johnny P. After the Ken Cal interview, I'm convinced that he's our guy. When I was very disappointed at first. Well, John, he is our guy. He's certainly signed. I'm kidding. It's just a little bit of.
He's definitely under contract. I don't know if he's our guy, but he is signed for. Hi guys, Eric.
Eric's aboard. Hi guys.
God bless you.
I think it's so funny that there's longtime podcast listeners that have no idea why we giggle every time Eric says hi. But yeah,
good Popsky. I will say that part of I'm gonna. Johnny performance art. Let me know if I'm voicing your concerns. I think we're just jaded, being fans in Detroit, where we know our Detroit Lions kept plucking guys off the Patriots, previously the St. Louis Rams, just trying to keep hiring off that coaching tree, signing free agents from that team, and now it kind of feels like Yzerman has been plucking a few players that are former Tampa Bay Lightning, and now he's grabbing an assistant coach. He's part of 2 Stanley Cup winners and then a runner-up this year. But I maybe that Lion experience, maybe the Pistons picking up Lawrence Frank, a lifetime assistant guy, and they tried to give him the reins as the head coach, and it quickly fell apart. For this guy to come in and I don't want to say he's on the coattails. We don't know a lot of his contribution, but I think it's just we've kind of been burned by, our team, our local teams kind of, just trying to pluck off those old trees. So
yeah,
my thought too before you cut in was I kind of wanted a guy who was hungrier.
Mike,
and for a guy who just did
2 minutes at a time and only give you like a minute and a half.
Yeah, I know, man. I got to do what I can over here to fight the good fight. No, this guy's just won 2 Stanley Cups, and then he came up, short this past season. I kind of wanted a guy who hadn't had a Stanley Cup yet. What is that? What's wrong with that take?
Your hot take. You want a guy. It's
not that. Look, I understand that like championship experience, right? That's a thing. But with this team, I kind of wanted a hungry coach. And I don't know how hungry this coach is going to be knowing that he's already done it.
Well, he hasn't done it as a head coach. It's not like we looked at Lidstrom and made him captain and we were like, we don't want him to be captain. He's already won the cup and he's won some Norris Trophy. He's cooked.
No, I'm not gonna say like leadership from he scored goals, he got assists. I mean, he led by example, a hard worker. I know that there's that example, right? Like Scotty Bowman won before he was a Red Wing.
Yeah.
I
think you're crazy.
I just wanted somebody hungry, and that's not what I'm getting.
I think you're being way too hard on this. I still come back to the fact that when you have that house that checks off all the boxes that you were looking for, that's fantastic. And when you think about the house, like when I said, like, it's this definition of me trying to say, like, how excited was I by the LaLonde signing? And that's probably where we're coming at this with different mindsets. Because I am still happy. I just wasn't, like, thrilled. I didn't see the news, and I was like, oh, man, it happened. Some of that is because the writing was on the wall. Like, we waited till after the Lightning were eliminated from the playoffs. Right. Steve was like, I just needed that opportunity to interview him. I don't think that was the case. I think such a dumb shit. Of course that wasn't the case. We signed the guy. But, so we kind of saw that coming, which kind of bummed out the excitement. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm happy with it. Again, just wasn't excited. I'm not really bumming. I'm not looking at it and finding. I don't know. I would struggle to find a reason not to like LaLonde, and I think it starts with what you mentioned, and Johnny P threw out there is the interview with Ken Cal, but that Ken Cal brings up. This is the second time Steve Yzerman has hired this guy. I feel like that is the number one reason to be happy with this, because we trust the Yzerplan. And look, I think there's two ways to look at this with trusting the Yzerplan, right? If this is a part of a next step, that just means that Yzerman still has all of the control. He's doing exactly what he wants. Or this is the guy that Yzerman sees to carry us to a Stanley Cup final. I will tell you, I do not believe that. But those are your two, there's your two positives of Yzerman making this guy like the second time he's hired this guy. He either sees him fitting perfectly with what the plan's going to be for the next 3 to 4 years, and then we go from Rick Carlisle to Larry Brown.
Oh, here we go.
Or we have, I don't know. I don't have a problem with saying this, but I understand we didn't get a championship from him. Or we have the Jim Leyland. And I don't know, obviously better track record Leyland had, was a manager. But I guess I just mean like a long tenured guy who's going to have success.
Well, let's look at this. So I don't think that, I think we can agree that it's maybe not the most exciting source to get your coach from, to get a retread of a guy that Yzerman's already had before. So let's look at it this way. Are you optimistic about his coaching philosophy? Because that was the other big focal point so far is, what does this guy bring into the table? And I feel like he owes an apology to the Philadelphia 76ers and superstar center Joel Embiid, because he did talk about the process and doing things the right way quite a few times. Does look like he's going to try and emphasize communication, building relationships, which is what he said has, gotten him to where he's at right now. But I don't know. I guess it's not really fair to. I guess that kind of scared me a little bit, because it kind of felt like I got a job because I built a relationship with Steve Yzerman. It's like, that's not what he's saying. And he's obviously gotten pretty far, all the way up to a championship level as an assistant coach, right? So does that philosophy, when you heard those words, or those kind of the magical words you were looking for?
No, and I think I will say this. I mentioned this in our 10-minute preview for the podcast listeners. You can't see, but I will try and draw with my words here. You have your average coach. You just have your line, right? And then you've kind of got like the max and min, or I shouldn't say the max and min. Sorry. You've got like most of your coaches fitting between my two arms here. But then you have guys all the way up here above those two lines that are greatest coaches of all time. Then you have guys all the way down here that are the worst coaches of all time. And what I mentioned was I don't know, a head coach that tells his players to make their own play, and then he gets fired the next game. Shout out to the Chicago Blackhawks. So most of those guys are going to fit here, and they're going to send similar messages because they're good messages to put into a newspaper. Jeff Blashill never really gave us messages that were like, "Ooh, I don't know, Jeff. I don't know if you want." It was. I would say they were pretty similar to what LaLonde was preaching, but I thought you were going to go this way. It's not really fair for us to we need to see some of this stuff happen. At the end of Blashill's run, we were like, "Oh my God, he's lost complete control because he's pulling goalies in and out." He's lost complete control because this lineup is never reflective of what we think, his words about, trying to develop and build and find some offense. It never really added up. Then it was always like, well, why did you put this line out there if that was your goal?
Yeah.
So I think to that end, we need to see like, oh, I'm all about communication. So that's communication with us. That's communication with his team. That means when we see a roster, that's communication. When we see the lineup card, that's communication. That's telling us certain things about players. That, you know, isn't necessarily direct communication with those players. It's not direct communication with us, but that's still communication. So if he believes that, then he knows that there's so many different ways to communicate, and we need to see him like execute properly. So kind of what I'm saying here is we can't really judge anything yet, but I'm also saying I think a lot of coaches, again, to illustrate that, we have like the average coach. Then we have a couple of bars that are not far from the average coach, and I think a majority of coaches fall in there. There's no reason that we've seen anything from Derek LaLonde to suggest he's outside of those bars, negatively or positively. But he's been hired by Steve Yzerman twice, and we've gone 16 minutes on this. I really thought we were going to go 5 minutes and just kind of be like, yeah, I'm cool with it. Not super stoked, which I still feel. But I also think it's worth saying that I think these 16 minutes we went a little too negative. I think it's not that bad, but I also think it's fair to say, hey, this guy could be another bridge to what will eventually be the Stanley Cup contender coach. I think that's fine too. I think it'd be tough to come up with any hard and fast.
I think we need to look at one more thing too.
Oh God.
So I mean, we looked at the source. Hold on, we looked at the source. We looked at the philosophy. I think the last thing is, like, look at the Lions with Dan Campbell. The Lions needed a kick in the pants.
Episode. Go ahead.
Lions needed a kick in the pants, and that guy is perfect. That guy is just raw emotion all over his sleeve. You know, the guy biting kneecaps, crying. You know, because of all these emotional moments. I really that is a coach that I would hire if that was my job. Pistons, Dwayne Casey. We're not even going to mention the Tigers because their management is just god awful. Dwayne Casey. I mean, they basically hired an old war veteran to go out there and teach these young punks, you know, the game of basketball. And his job is to develop talent. My God, the Pistons, out of a draft that was before the season ranked as one of the worst ever, have suddenly created 2 or 3 pretty good players, and then they had, you know, obviously Cade fall into their laps. But it kind of feels like we got a guy who's doing what we want. So my last thing for you with LaLonde, based on what you've heard from the philosophy, based on his personality type, do you think that this then is the coach that this team, that this roster needs?
I guess I want to see some lineups. Is that fine?
You want to see what if you know, where he puts Zadina? Is that going to be the first litmus test?
Yeah, I think if we're seeing some issues with like guys getting ice time and like getting that opportunity to develop, maybe when he talks about communication, I want to hear what's going on. But and that's tough to get from a coach. I realize that, but it's just one of those things. Like, what's going to keep me from getting angry at that point? And if I
because he's already.
Well, like if I said he's the perfect coach for them right now, then that would be called back and be like, well, why were you so excited about him before? So I'm just trying to come at it with as much gray as possible so I can get angry later and be fine.
With this offseason on the way, like, he had a really interesting diplomatic answer when they said, what do you mean by the communication? And he's like, well, I want to talk to the players and I want to figure out what they want from themselves, what they want from their teammates, what they want from me as their coach, and then what they want from this Red Wing organization. And, you know, with the Red Wings basically having a blank cap sheet, I think that's a pretty important question. And I feel like one that Steve probably really honed in on, because it's like, yeah, what do you want to do with your career? I keep making these moves to, you know, pick up these ne'er-do-wells and, you know, never has-beens and trying to give you a second, you know, leash on life to see what you can do with it. Do you want to try to make this work and work really hard this offseason and, you know, be a guy that I'm excited to give a 4-year deal to? Or, you know, is this, you know, do you want to be a fourth liner or a minor league guy? So I think those are going to be some pretty interesting questions that LaLonde and Yzerman are going to be, you know, composing for this roster and potential guys that they sign.
Yeah, and to your point, with that being asked, that's great. actually. I think if he's going at it from that aspect, I know you're talking about like pushing these guys maybe to do a little bit more, but I also think that there's an aspect of like mental health, which is going to be great here. And at least the approach he talks about is going to be good for the kids, which is, I have trouble saying this or like talking about it because it was also the same thing we said about Blashy Boy. And we saw how that went. And we heard rumors. I'll just say rumors don't, they don't just pop up. Sometimes it is just for clickbait, but there are rumors of like players getting angry with Blashill. So I will say, even, I said I have problems with making that comparison or making the notion that I think his mentality is good for young players. And the problem I have is that I also felt that for Jeffy Boy. So I still say it's good for young players. I still say that's the route we should go. Let's make sure that these guys still love the game. If this guy's taking us to the playoffs or he disappears one day, either way, I think that's that to answer like the question of, is this perfect or is this good for the team we have right now? For one that's developing and growing, I at least like that the words out of his mouth are about mental health and keeping these guys like, he's not scaring them away from the game. And I'm going to steal that from somebody I talked to before I left work today. But we have so many shout outs, Mike. We've been talking too much. Eric says, I think he's going to do great. Johnny P says, I wanted something sexy to attract free agents, but sometimes the girl next door is really what you're looking for. Ketzel's aboard. Ketzel, what's going on? Howdy, howdy. Eric wants to know, Mike, are you doubting the Yzerplan?
I wouldn't say that it's doubting. I think he seemed, what's so funny is the way that he talks. He seems so measured and calculated, like Yzerman. Mm-hmm. And the way that he is, a guy who mentioned, being part of the process, doing things the right way. It just wasn't. Was it a comment ago? Was it Johnny who's saying it wasn't like the sexiest pick? I think that it is going to be kind of that spoonful of medicine. So I don't know how exciting a coach he is. He's definitely not a Dan Campbell, but he might be what we need. So I'm not doing cartwheels because it's. I don't know if that makes me as a free agent want to play here. I mean, you are getting a guy as just was in 3 Stanley Cups, true. But yeah, I don't know if it's down the Yzerplan, but I guess. What's funny is I think this is how our offseason might be. It might be, unsexy free agent signings and responsible trades. It kind of feels like what this build is at in a nutshell. So it's almost more kind of a microcosm of what I can expect for the next year or two, and it's just kind of a not a rocket ship trajectory, but just kind of a slow upwards trajectory. So I'm realizing that I'm going to have to be patient.
Well, yeah, and Steve made that point too. He also said today, though, he said he wants to add some guys that are going to like complement Bertuzzi and Larkin and, help them maybe. I don't know how you determine, like, what is the next level? Does that mean, how do they look in the playoffs? Or is it just like, okay, well, now we're competitive for 82 games. Like, what are we looking at here? And we won't know until we see those free agent signings. And Steve basically said, I'm not afraid to hit the free agent market. And that was pretty fun to read. But
I mean, how do you doubt Yzerman when he's built a hockey dynasty in this, like in the salary cap era, for Tampa?
Yeah. I think,
how do you doubt his like drafting track record? You can't really. It's just, I guess I was just a little bummed about, we did just kind of get a guy from his old team. But, I mean, if anybody's going to judge talent or coaching ability, it would be Steve.
And he's done a lot of hirings with guys that he knows. And what's funny is we didn't, like, see this coming even further ahead with, like he made that comment, when I do my next head coach, I want to know the guy. So, he hired a guy he's hired before, but also, like, I mean, freaking Chris Draper's one of his head scouts. So, like, we know. We already knew that. How many former guys that he's played with is he going to put on this team? How many more? We don't know.
Yeah.
There's still some assistant spots open. Curtis wants to know, with Tunge already under contract, will any assistants have hair? Toupees do not count. And Murdoch points out, at least it wasn't Babcock, which I thought was funny, because you're talking about one of the top 10 heads of hair of all time behind the bench. I used to call him Hot Fudge Head, of course, in reference to Sanders' Hot Fudge, which I felt looked like somebody had just warmed up a glass jar of Sanders' Hot Fudge and dumped it on top of Babcock's head.
Pre-interview, pre-game, you'd get a fresh fudging in that locker room.
The more we learned about Mike Babcock, the more I think we all wished it was a
piping fudge hot, went into his brain.
Yeah, piping hot jar, like lava hot. But anyway, it's still, I honestly, Curtis, at this point, to go back to your question, please, God, be bald. I think that would be
an all bald coaching staff. I think would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's what we're used to. That's what we love. That's what we love around here.
Like how the Yankees, they make you get like a proper buzz cut. Like every Red Wing should have a bald head.
So you want to hire a guy with a full head of hair, but
I want all the players to shave their heads. Sorry, Bertuzzi.
So when I was describing how coaches that I was doing the average and then the top and bottom sort of like standard deviation for coaches, Johnny P points out Matt's doing the YMCA. Johnny comes back. It's just going to be hard to attract free agents. That's kind of how he feels. But also, I don't know. To that same vein, his next comment, Johnny, where are you at, man? He's the coach to take us to the Cup. He's here for 7 years.
Maybe he's saying that if we're gonna go to the Cup and it's in the next 7 years, it's probably gonna be this guy. I don't know if was Cooper a star hire.
No. That's a good point by Eric. But again, I think it ultimately is going to come down to, like, the question I'm answering is like, was I excited? No. Can we call this guy the next Cooper? No. Is he the next Jeff Blashill? We don't know. But am I stoked about this signing? It could have been worse, but I'm happy with it. I'm just not over the moon. But I do think, to say that it's very possible that we have another bridge coach. It's pretty possible. What's funny too is it's all going to depend on when Steve pulls the trigger on like really upgrading this roster. Because again, if I came back to like the average coach conversation, I do my little YMCA arms.
You're doing the bar is high, but the bar is also low. And the bar also in the middle. Go ahead.
Those coaches that keep their job win. So I mean, if we have a better roster and we win, yeah, sure, he'll stick around forever, right? Here we go. I think this is from Silver 3344. I think this is Silver's first comment today. Yzerman's coaches are more secondary than experienced coaches who need their way, so to speak.
You know what, Silver? I love that point. And I think I thought that the coach was going to come in and like give these guys a spanking, but instead it kind of looks like his job is to make sure that Yzerman's plan is coming to fruition. And I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with that philosophy because we're watching a dynasty in Florida, where hockey started.
All right. We got way off track. Eric throws out there, the draft boys, focus on the draft. We're pretty guilty right now of getting off topic.
It was supposed to get in there.
We're hitting a half hour now.
I know. I just wanted to do a little LaLonde stuff, but I don't know how you wanted to do this. I know we kind of had our top 3 guys and guys I think the Red Wings are going to pick. So we could kind of get into that for sure.
Well, I mean,
because we're almost there. We're 2 days away.
One of the things that I wanted to pull up and I thought would be fun was just to take a look at the elite prospects. I wanted to take a look at like how these guys are ranked for like skating and mobility, but I think you might be right that we maybe should just go back and forth and go through our top 3 guys because we've gone pretty deep now on just Derek LaLonde. But I'm trying to find my list here and at least start with the guy that makes the most sense for me. But Mike, who do you have? Should we go third on your list?
Yeah. Did you want me to do my guys or the guys I think the Red Wings are going to pick?
Ooh, let's go. Your 3 guys, the top 3 guys. Mike wants. You want the Detroit Red Wings to draft?
It's the guys. Yeah, it's the guys I would pick. And
Okay.
what's funny is there is 0 overlap between the 3 and the 3. We've done a few draft shows, kind of profiling a few guys here and there. We didn't really take a lot of looks at the top defensemen. If one drops, I could almost certainly see Yzerman giving it a look, even though that's from our prospect pool, currently under the Red Wing, control. That's probably our strongest areas, prospective defensemen. And picking at number 8, I don't think you're getting a sure thing like you usually do if you're drafting like 1, 2, 3. So philosophically, I did kind of lean more towards guys who had at least some sort of skill that was like at an A level. Something that maybe I can hope the philosophy being I can coach them to be an adequate average NHL player. And then we can lean on this, super high-end skill to get you to the point where you're top 6, forward in the league. And it's a successful pick at number 8. So with the preamble said, Matt, I had 3 guys, and it was some guys that we looked at. It was Lekkerimaki, it was Brad Lambert, and it was Cutter Gauthier. Nice. Respectively for the 3 guys with Lekkerimaki. Arguably the best shot in the draft. Pretty good skater, pretty good playmaker. Things to work on defensively. But if I can lean on having, one super duper high end shot, we know the Red Wings have not had, an A+ power play in a while. This is definitely a guy who doesn't mind taking crazy angles because he is that confident in how powerful his shot is. So, I mean, if we can start to coach him to get a little bit better positioning and be like, yeah, you do have phenomenal skill, but man, imagine if that phenomenal skill turned into actual goals. So with Lekkerimaki, I feel like there is a path to making this guy, a really good top 6 for your Red Wings. We do have experience, coaching some guys with wheels. I'm looking at you, Larkin. So I don't know if Lambert really has, that type of ceiling. But if you're asking guys at elite prospects, they definitely value this guy pretty high. With skating, they do give him a lot of credit for, just going in a straight line. But they also do value his, the 4-way mobility, ability to get back on his heels, moving left to right, also going forward and being such an elite skater. I mean, he's so good at it. It's easy for him to break away from the play and kind of, make plays happen on his own. He does have a lot of room for growth. But I think, something we talk about a lot, drafting a number 8, those players are going to have warts. So are they warts that you think you can coach out? Yeah, with Lambert, I think I can. And knowing that I'm going to have a really strong skater, that's appealing to me. Then the last guy.
Let me stop you because I want to talk about Lekkerimaki was actually let me stop sharing my screen here and share a different one. Okay. Lekkerimaki was also number 3 on my list, so I did want to call that out at least, and maybe I can actually find this here. We have a Brad Lambert PDF. Nope. All right, whatever. This is ridiculous. I'm trying to pull up my goddamn PDFs and it's not working. Okay, well, Lekkerimaki was on my top 3 too, and it was kind of for the same reasons. He grades out fantastic for me, and like you said, one of the best shots, and that's kind of where my head was at first. And I think it's one of those things too, where one of the first like the first pushback you'd see when talking about Lekkerimaki is going to be, all right, you're talking about another right winger, and we want to look for some centers. And that's where I would kind of push back and say, hey, we have a Tyler Bertuzzi contract to talk about. We have a Zadina that hasn't necessarily worked out. Verana's here now. Lekkermaki's going to take a couple years to develop. So what do we do in a couple years from now? So basically, there isn't anything that's so solid right now that I wouldn't just go ahead and take a look at. Yes, I have one of the top shots coming out of the draft this year. So absolutely, Lekkerimaki is on this list. And I think I'm going to get it to work. Yeah. All right. So that's what we were looking at before. But then you pivoted over to Brad Lambert. And I don't know why I pulled this up only to make that pivot. But I agree with you. Again, I'm not putting him in my top 3, but I do see the value in having that guy who's rated as the top skater, right? So you're talking about a thing that you can't get away from it. That's ultimately what they're looking to do. Number one, you hit the ice, you can skate. So the reason that's so exciting that this works is because all this other stuff, you kind of feel like you can teach it, you can help it move forward. When we took a look at Brad, we saw some issues with like decision making. We saw some issues that were probably in regards to how small he is, which can be fixed. Could be fixed through practice, be fixed through repetition. So Brad's doing a lot of great things for me in regards to like what we've seen from the positives. Just a lot of people are saying the negatives kind of outweigh that. But again, I would challenge you to just think about like that could be an easy fix. You put some bulk on this guy, you kind of teach him, no, you got to hit the boards when you've got those opportunities. And then when we see him go on breakaways because of his speed and abilities to puck handle, you just let him know you're going to get more opportunities when you do that. You don't have to cherry pick, which has been kind of what you could look at Brad and see his play over the last year and kind of peg him for that just a little bit. Also threw out their best, second best transition forward came from elite prospects. I think that's huge too. That does go sometimes with the cherry picking. He can he can kind of lean away again from the physical play, so he's not really going into the boards, but you don't need him to go into the boards on every single possession every time he's on the ice. So when you are asking him to transition to the offensive side, he does do a great job of it. And I think when we took a look at the percentages and, again, back to how much the Red Wings struggle like on the power play, and we saw what a difference it could make to have a Lucas Raymond, while albeit, some of that was figured out. Some of that was it slowed down a bit once we got to the second half. And that can be, okay, we know what's going to happen when Lucas Raymond touches the puck. He needs more help. This is more help. This is help on the power play so that you have at least 2 options, maybe 3 if you want to say Dylan Larkin is one of those options too, because I think he's also a great transition player. But yeah, you're not playing that silly game where Fabry just, hands the puck to the opponent on the power play and then he just, looks up at the sky and chews on his mouth guard and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Can we just mention too real quick? Yeah. Like how far out of my mind Robbie Fabry has been, like while we try to like fantasy book, like drafting and free agency, I forget about him all the time.
Yeah. I didn't really account for him either.
Yeah. It's kind of eye opening to go, oh my gosh, we still got to ice Robbie Fabry. All right. But Mike, your number 1?
Oh, I don't know if I would necessarily. I wouldn't put it in that order. Yeah. Throw your number 2 in there first.
Actually, give me I gotta. What is your number 1? Because I
wouldn't. Yeah, I kind of screwed it up because they're all kind of right in the same spot. It just depends on what you want to prioritize. I'd probably actually do Lekkerimaki 1, Lambert 2, and then this third guy, Gauthier. I would put it at 3.
I did have him up. Okay.
for one, I'd be very excited for the Red Wings to give me a reason to practice the pronunciation of his name over and over and over.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
The other thing too is, I mean, if you're gonna prioritize guys with the right attitude and personality and doing things the right way and following the process, I feel like he checks a few boxes. Being a center, being a guy with some size, at 6'3", 200-pound guy. Still really young in this draft. A guy that I did fetishize in Hurdle the Turtle, Tomas Hurdle. And this is a guy who's supposed to be a power forward. He's supposed to, kind of use some beef to kind of, make his physical presence known and make plays happen. And as far as, kind of following that same trajectory with, we want guys with the right personality, are going to give a hoot every time. This is supposed to be a guy who's supposed to have a really good motor. So if he's at a position of need, he's the right size. Yzerman likes his big boys. He's got the motor. It would be tough to turn him down. And I think if we're going to compare him to Hurdle, and Hurdle probably would have been, a guy that we pursued in free agency if he hadn't already, had a deal. You get the really cheap version, and you do that by, picking number 8, getting Cutter.
We have to come back to the comments here a little bit here. Murdoch, Lekkerimaki is who I think the Wings pick. I like Savoie and Cutter. Let me try Gauthier.
Yeah, I like Savoie as well. I just feel like he's probably going to go first.
Mike from Johnny P. If the Raptors get Kevin and keep Scotty and Pascal, and are we contenders? I think so.
Wow, that's a lot of guys who are like 6'8" and taller. That is like the most switchable defense ever. And you have a Hall of Fame scorer, and our favorite Frenchman in Pascal and Scotty. Arguably, still people think he was the top guy in that draft. Hard to debate after what he did his first season. But yeah, that's a pretty sexy team. I could see them in the Eastern Finals. But Johnny, we'll have to do our own little basketball podcast here after that. But yeah, I like that move.
I do like the Cutter pick. I think that works out. That's another one. Like when we were talking about it, I 100% would be like, all right, I get it. But it wouldn't be my number one. Cutter is also probably on the outside, just like Brad Lambert. So my number 2, I guess I should probably think about preparing this stuff. I can say it. It's Maddie Savoy, number 2 on my list.
Is that a Matt bias right there?
Actually, it probably does figure in quite a bit, and I still haven't pulled up the screen. Maddie Savoy, where do the problems start, Mike? The size. He's a little guy. He's 5'9". That's not my favorite thing in the world. I tend to make fun of that. That's like my first thing. I always kind of look at those sizes and I think, well, this is not what I want. But we're looking at a combined, like we were just talking about, like some issues in the physicality of a Brad Lambert, and you don't see that in a Maddie Savoy. You see a guy who does drive pretty hard. But this to me is like a good combination of offensive pluses: skating, shooting, passing, and puck handling. Where we saw Lambert, and you see like probably the best skater, you see a Maddie Savoy who could fit on the center side, who's going to check off like on average more boxes and be ready to go. I think this is a guy for somebody like the Red Wings, and the positive here is that Lambert probably needs a couple more years, where Maddie Savoy, you could at least make the argument with some of the successes he's already had. You take a look at like those 12 points in the playoffs he just had. I mean, you talk about crunch time. You talk about playing as hard as you can in the moments that matter most. And that's where Maddie Savoy had some success. So I'm gonna go ahead and say he's number 2 on my list again, because I think you can get him onto this team a little bit faster. And I think at some point, if you can strategize to start finding those guys that are cutting some years off development. I mean, you talk about Simon Edvinsson is coming up next year. Lucas and Moritz Seider start in the same year. Maddie Savoy can get going in a couple years. I think we're pretty happy with that. And you've got so many other guys too that in the meantime we want to give a chance. You know, you want to see where like a Mazer's going. Who God, please nickname him Principal Mazer. Shout out to a Goofy movie. But you want to give those guys more time, and you can kind of feed them through. And in the meantime, you can let a Maddie Savoy continue to develop. But I mean, we have like an Elmer Soderblom who needs to make an appearance at some point. So if those guys can all kind of come together at once, that's where you're trying to knock off these development years. And I think Savoy's a guy that can knock some of those off. Let's see, where are we at? Robert Cole, he'll be gone. Every mock draft, I think he's talking about Savoy. Actually, I don't even know. Oh yeah, this was just 3 minutes ago. Has him going to Columbus. Eric Johnson, Braden Point, small. Very true. Also. But Robert Cole, he does like him, but I do agree. This is going to be one where I think if he's there, I absolutely would take him. And I think my number one is kind of a combination of who I think will be there and who I also like. And let me. Nope, didn't make the PDF yet. Hey guys, how's it going today, Mike? How are you? Are you having a good day?
I'm doing great.
That's good to hear. Good to hear.
What are we waiting on over here, Matt?
Matt's pulling up his number one.
Wait, just don't have the slide ready.
Nope.
That's okay.
Frank Nazar, woo! All right, Matt's number one. I might be overthinking it a bit here, but when you talked about Maddie Savoy, Mike, you talked about a guy like elite prospects did it best. Like they said, all right, 5th best vision. Now you pull up a Frank, Mike. 2nd best straight line skater. 2nd best problem solving skills. Highest ceiling. 2nd best vision. Best transition forward. You talk about a couple of skills that we were already high on Brad Lambert, and then you add the hockey sense to it. You talk about like this is it. This is your draft pick. Frank Nazar, good to go. Ship him out. He is 5'10", 181 pounds. He does play center and right wing. But if you can get that center position to work, this is your boy. This is the guy who mucks it up. But he's also a great passer, great shot, good at puck handling. And when we took a look at Frank Nazar and we analyzed that one game, and that was with the help, I think at the time we were looking at San Luis. Yeah. Yep. We were looking at San Luis game that he picked out from the Team USA. Like he had a 5-point performance, which is just, it was incredible. And I don't know, for me right now, I feel like this guy, as I just talked about Savoy being like a total package, you get an extra inch. Who doesn't like an extra inch, right? Ladies, you get an extra inch out of Frank, and you get, I think, a guy that looks more ready to go as opposed to a Brad Lambert, like we talked about. And I'm going to come to Tristan here in a second, who has like maybe he even arguably has a higher ceiling, but his floor is pretty low. But that's where you can kind of cut some of that off. You can take some of that floor and bring it a little bit closer to the ceiling with a Frank Nazar. Let me throw out.
You know what's funny is I didn't really for the Red Wings. Funny enough, he's my top pick for them. If he's there, this is who that I see them picking.
And another element here this was actually just something that Eric Johnson brought up in regards to Savoy. But Elite Prospect says this is your Braden Point. Bingo, bingo. Somebody on the Detroit Red Wings drafted Braden Point. I know that's sort of a silly point to come to because that's just somebody's opinion. But I when we analyzed this guy, we saw a lot that we liked, and I think it was just so many things that were like, maybe he's not the greatest at one thing in this draft, but he's right up there with so many different things. Like it's not one of those where we have to play that game where it's like, oh, it's good. Like is he perfect? No. Is he amazing? No, but it's like everything is great, right? Everything's scoring out to be great. Everything we saw from that game we analyzed with San Luis, great. It all just looks good. And that's another guy I think you shave a year of development off as opposed to a couple of the other names out there. Murdoch, I'd be real happy with Nazar. That's my boy. Tristan throws out there, who I want? Lambert, Maddie Savoy, and Kemmel, number 3. So we haven't brought up Kemmel at all. For whatever reason, I always looked at Kemmel and I said, it's just not going to happen. Even though you could make the argument it's maybe less likely that Savoy be available. And then Tristan goes on, who I think Yzerman drafts. Lekkerimaki, Frank Nazar, Liam Ogren. I will say, I think there's a good possibility that Liam gets drafted, but not at number 8. I think that would be something where Steve is going to take some of those second-round picks and later and maybe move up in the draft, maybe even some picks from next year's draft to move up and get a second first-rounder. Anywho, Tristan, I love this list. I think we have a lot of similarities here. And yeah, I gotta say, Mike, if you wanted to go with who we think Yzerman's going to draft, number 1 on my list is actually Lekkerimaki. So I don't know how you feel about the Yzerplan draft. So those are our top 3 guys. And let's recap real quick before we get too deep into that conversation. Nazar, number 1 for me. Maddie Savoy, number 2. Lekkerimaki, number 3. Mike, your top 3?
For me, for the Red Wings, it'd be Lekkerimaki, and then Brad Lambert, and then Cutter Gauthier. But I did spoil one of the ones I think the Red Wings will pick, and will be Frank the Tank Nazar. But the way that this draft is going, and the way that the centers are kind of all over the map, for one of my number 2 for the Red Wings is going to be if the inevitable drop of David Jiricek, who we did not talk about, but he's the defenseman at the top of this draft with a little bit of size at 6'3".
Defenseman.
The way that this team just goes, you know what, we're going to get the best available guy. We don't really care what you think. Ooh, we got a center. Oh, we really need centers. Well, you know what? Jiricek is maybe the best defenseman in this draft. So I could see Yzerman not passing on that guy. And then it would leave a lot of us going, who? Why? No, centers. But, what do we know? We've never built a dynasty in the hotbed of hockey that is Tampa Bay, Florida. And the last one I had was a guy, again, that none of us talked about, and it was all about size. Nathan Gauthier, who is the center, 6'3", and part of the appeal is, his scouting report that there's a lot of leadership skills that people talk about, and he's an all situations player. So, he plays defense. He takes faceoffs in his own zone. He's on the power play. He's not a huge point guy, which is why we haven't really talked about him yet. But I feel like 2 guys. One is a defenseman dropping. The Red Wings saying best player available. We don't care what you think. Gauthier would just be, a big center who is diverse. But Matt, it's got to be Frank the Tank. It has to be. If he's there, it has to be.
Dan A throws out there, highest ceiling. There's a short joke in there somewhere. Dan. Tristan throws out there, Yzerman seemed to sound like he will be valuing upside very much. He said, we will draft who we believe will become the best player one day in the NHL. So maybe some guy with the highest ceiling. No, I'm just kidding. That's where Tristan says, thus, I think Lambert shouldn't be ruled out. I have not ruled him out. He's in my top 5.
See, Tristan, I like his, that A+ skill that he has. But for him to hot potato between leagues and hearing that that's kind of under the advice of his agent, and they're trying to just get him some, razzle-dazzle numbers on the stat sheet, that makes me think that there's almost no chance the Red Wings pick him. I would be stunned.
I hadn't had that thought.
Nazar is putting himself in tough positions, and he doesn't quite yet have the sexiest numbers, which is why he's not one of the 1, 2, 3 guys. But he's like, yeah, I don't give a damn. Just put me in there, where Lambert has hot potatoed. So I don't think that they're big on his attitude.
And I had not thought about that. I had a couple of times convinced myself that Lambert was going to go at number 8, but you just made the best case of why he wouldn't. I don't know. I think there's a lot to that. I think we see guys like Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider, and
And Tristan, mentioning that Nazar is jacked, those guys in the weight room, those are the guys who, that takes a lot of hard work. So as far as work ethic goes, it's usually a pretty good indicator that, it's not bulletproof 100% of the time that the dudes who are ripped, are going to succeed in this league. But if you're giving a hoot about already adding to your frame, knowing that you're going to have to do that anyway, and this guy's already, doing the thing that they're probably going to give whoever they draft, a list of things that we want you to start doing in your life before the season starts. And Frank's like, yeah, I already do all that. What else you got? It's a pretty good indicator. That's, a strong likelihood that the Red Wings are circling that guy on their board.
Yeah, we have a couple of comments coming from Eric and Tristan that we don't have to really worry about Yzerplan. I kind of agree with that. It's one of those, that's our Bob McKenzie stuff we talked about like a week ago, where it's just kind of like, all right, some of this stuff is cemented and done. And sometimes he is so close to some of these front offices. That's where we kind of know that Lekkerimaki is also going to be number 8 or drafted 8th. But yeah, I think it'll be a long shot. Tristan does throw out there Nathan Gauthier is supposed to be mid-second round. So that would be
right in that Mo Seider wheelhouse. Perfect.
I mean, that's still something for us where, you don't want to just completely, like I said, defense, schmefense. So you drafted in the second round. There you
I'm not picking him. He wasn't in my top 3, but I'm just saying, based on precedent in this town. Yeah. All right. Steve sees something. Let's pick him.
Murdoch 86. How high could we move up pairing Hronek with a second?
You could go from 8 to 7.
I would say, all right, pairing Hronek with a second or 2. So that's a couple of second rounders. We're talking multiple years on that. Let's see. Hronek in a second rounder, maybe 2. I would say you're taking your second rounder and you're moving into the first round. All right, I think it's fair to say like bottom 10 picks in the first round.
I think you can safely move up with an NHL ready defenseman and a second round pick into the bottom 10. I will agree with that. But isn't the point of this that we're trying to get more lottery guys?
No. 20 through 30.
Oh, that's what I meant. Bottom third.
Picks 20. Yeah, picks 20.
That's bottom third. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not the top of the third. Yeah.
Yeah, and Murdoch does confirm here, not giving up the 8th. So we're going with second round and moving up with a round.
I wasn't sure if you're trying to, find some way to, get up to Shane Wright or something like that. But yeah.
Well, I will say, I think that's something we can't necessarily rule out because I don't know. I think we just need to stay on our toes. I made a comment on Twitter today. I've never been more convinced that at the time when I read Yzerman's quote, I felt this, but I've never been more convinced that we were going to move up in the draft. After going through this list, I think there's a lot of good names. And I think, honestly, with how shy everybody's getting with Shane Wright, like the people who are much closer and have actually interviewed this guy, I'm weary of giving up too much to move up in this draft when there's a lot to like from 8, anywhere in that circle of like who elite prospects in the consolidated rankings has like 5 and like up. I mean, we've found guys that are in the top 15 now that we've convinced ourselves would be a good pick. So.
Yeah, this is not the draft I would, try to move up from 8. I would like to move up and get, something in the lottery. Because it feels like there's a lot of, guys with just a ward or 2. But, I'd be comfortable moving assets to get like a, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think we're about ready.
Did
to
we have
spill
any?
off into the
Did we have any
sunset.
other comments just about who guys wanted? Just curious.
Oh,
I know yeah.
Tristan came back. No, Mo Sider was supposed to go 15 to 20. I think, wasn't it Scott Wheeler? I thought he had him close to the second. I know we've had this conversation before.
I mean, he was buried on a few boards. For sure. I'll double check that. Yeah.
No, Murdoch is going out there. This would be like a dream draft, right? Depending on if Lambert falls back far.
Wow.
I'd like to pick Nazar and snag another first to snag Brad. I think that if you walked away and that was your first round,
that's a home run. That's A+.
You just picked two guys that also, like the development, they'll be on different tracks. So you'll have your guy that, again, I think Nazar cuts a year off of development. And I think, Brad, you give the time to figure it out. And ultimately, you've seen some skill on there that could be or link him to like elite level super duper star. So if he could figure the rest of it out, you can give him the time. I think that is how you draft a Brad Lambert. Like, you've already had your first round pick. You've got your guy that you already wanted. And Brad has fallen back far enough because everybody's kind of, I don't know. Did you see that he moved around a little bit? And then you
I know, but I hate Murdoch's comment because now I'm going to be crossing my fingers and hoping that it happens because that would be awesome.
Murdoch is guessing Lambert won't be there after 15 or so. It's possible. That's where
I don't know because he's really all over the map. Like, people are really bummed about his point production, but I don't know. I mean, we've seen guys get mega numbers and they don't really pan out. So I would be fine trying to teach him how to score a little bit better.
Well, Mike, straight from winging it in Motown, Jacob Brevard coming in. Lambert could be the best player in the draft if he pans out. Obviously, if is the key word. And again, Jacob's nailing it here. Like we've been talking about, like this, that is one that's tough for me to not put him in my top three. Mike, you had him as your number two.
Yep,
Number two. It was tough for me, but he's definitely one you got to consider. I'm more hesitant because of the point you made about him jumping around teams to try and show off for the NHL draft. Is that really Yzerplan-y? Mike, we talked about Nazar putting in the effort in the weight room. That's still putting in effort. It's just effort in a different area, right? That's just effort in trying to get some ice time. So that doesn't mean he doesn't.
I wish we could have been there to be creative. Like, this is a different time now. All right. Mo Sider won the Calder. Like, people are starting to recognize it's okay if you don't have those, basic, third grader, numbers. It's okay if you don't have the goals and assists yet. We can see you're developing. You're positive. The potential for goals is there. We're going to get you there.
Yeah, Tristan's, he's got that star upside. Absolutely. Elite. How did I put it? Like, elite super duper star.
You're drafting a ceiling. That's what you're doing. Lambert, you're drafting a ceiling.
But Frank.
But that floor though.
Number one ceiling. Right. That's what you're looking at. You're looking at number one ceiling, according to Elite Prospects, Frank. I think you put Brad Lambert, even though he's not ranked. I think for you and I, he's got probably maybe 1A, 1B ceiling. But yeah, when you compare the two floors of those two guys, I think you could still find the bottom six player.
If he hasn't scored yet, what if he's Darren Helm?
Well, Darren Helm just won a Stanley Cup, so you can't poo-poo Darren Helm. He might bookend his career with Stanley Cup. So I'm not gonna say anything bad about Darren Helm right now. Darren turned in some great hockey for us. Like, he knew what he was. I'm not gonna poo-poo that. So I'm gonna say there's the possibility Frank becomes a Darren Helm.
I think you just want a little bit more at number 8.
Right. I'm just saying, if you're talking about, you mentioned the basement ceiling, or I'm sorry, the basement floor. That floor could still put Frank at the NHL level. I think the floor with Lambert could be, in all honesty, it could be not even reaching the NHL, even though we've seen like this elite level skating and all of this, and the stick handling is just insane, and this transition game is just out of this world. It's fantastic. But there's also this past season, and if that is duplicated, and duplicated again, like how do you convince yourself that this, all right, well now we need to bring it over to North America.
Is that the scariest point for Lambert, that he has the highest likelihood of never making it to the NHL?
Oh Jesus, I wouldn't say that. That is well beyond what his situation is. But I mean, comparing the two, I think if you had to look at how they've produced so far, and you had to pick between Nazar and Lambert, which for some reason that's what this has turned into. But if you had to pick between the two, who's more likely to not make it to the NHL? Was the guy who had 8 points last year?
I think he had 10.
We don't need to guess. We have elite prospects. That almost rhymed. I'm kind of happy with it. All right. Liga, Mike. Oh, my God. What did I just say? 10 points?
You said 8. I corrected you to 10.
Oh, damn it. I'm so excited. I was like, hey, 10 points sounds familiar. Jesus, I'm so stupid. 24 games with JYP, 24 games with Pelicans, 10 total points. I'm sorry, 25 games with the Pelicans. So that's your 49 games, 10 points. Not saying there's anything, like what we see from Lambert is that these points will go up. Yeah. It's just
hopefully
this,
at some point.
But yeah, you're also 2020, 2021, 15 points in 46 games. So, I mean, it's not to say, so far it's been pretty consistent. So that definitely needs to, if he's still going to be playing overseas, it's got to get kicked up. All right, Eric, let's go Red Wings. Let's go Red Wings. Let's go Red Wings. All right, Tristan, Connor Geekie can literally miss the NHL, in my opinion. No, and I'm glad I put that. I think we were just talking about, right? We were just talking
about of the guys, of the guys that we were juiced about. Yeah,
I think you absolutely see both of those guys in the NHL at some point, Nazar and Lambert, but we're kind of just playing that game based on production so far. Jacob asking this wonderful question, Mike, that you ruined for us because you're going to go see Thor. Jacob wants to know if we're going to go to the draft party this Thursday. I desperately want to. I guess I could go by myself, but I got damn kids to watch. And if Mike was going, then I could
just put them in little Red Wing jerseys, Matt. They won't know the difference.
You know what? I think I did propose that to my wife. I said,
just be the dad with the iPad, with the Mickey Mouse on the iPad.
Guys, you should go say hi to Jacob Brevard. He will be there. Again, winging it in Motown. He's our buddy. He was on for probably one of our highest viewed live episodes. That was so much fun. Tristan helping us out there with the 4 goals and 6 assists for Brad. I do like this comment. Connor Geekie, this is coming from Rivard. Connor Geekie reminds me of Michael Rasmussen, who still to this day, I remember being at a baseball game with like one of our mutual friends, and I just remember, like, I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back. I just remember being asked, "So what do you think about Rasmussen?" And I was like, if we draft Rasmussen, Ken Holland literally has no idea what he's doing anymore. And lo and behold, look, I don't hate Michael Rasmussen. I think he's made some great strides, but they are, again, like you just talked about, do you want an 8th pick to end up a bottom 6 forward? You don't shoot for that.
Right.
I do have to scroll back here. Chewy came aboard, and I just saw Chewy's second.
What's
going on, Chewy? Chewy's missing it. He's got Bible study this Thursday.
Sorry.
I will be with us in spirit to that vein through Twitter, but I'm gonna try and maybe do a live. I'm gonna throw some maybes on there because it'll also depend.
If we trade for Lambert, I might have to call during Thor and just do like a live freak out, because
you do that for us?
I would do that for you, man.
Fucking piece.
I'm gonna give what nobody asked for. Just to freak out during Thor.
Who has the time? Nobody has the time for this draft.
I think it's 7 o'clock.
Yeah, you're right. 7 o'clock ESPN. All right. 7 o'clock's going to be tough. That's bedtime, but I'm going to make it happen. Be the second bedtime that I will get in trouble for this week. For you guys, because I love you guys.
Yeah, you got to stay up till, I think, like 10:30 for when we trade back into the first round for Lambert. So,
all right. I think we're ready to sail off in the sunset. Jacob, we got to have you back on the show. This is a blast. Look, and right now, Jacob and Mike finally meeting. I was kind of hoping that you guys are going to be together so that you could talk Elden Ring. I think that was the last time we recorded. And we still haven't had that conversation, so that would be fun. Maybe that's a post-draft free agencies getting stale conversation.
Oh, yeah, I'm on character number 2. This is a strength intelligence build. Oh, let me tell you about that Moonveil blade. Oh, good weapon, good weapon. Anyway, man, as you.
Well, I confessed to you earlier today, Mike. I've been stuck on Returnal, and I haven't made it past the third boss yet. And you gave this to me. When did you give me Returnal?
Was it Christmas?
Was it? No.
Yeah.
Have I been playing one game since December? No, that can't be right.
What other occasion would I have given that to you?
I beat Ghosts of Tsushima.
I didn't give you that game.
Well, I bought it for myself.
Well, put it away.
All right, last question here. Justin Shields. Who do you want Detroit to draft? Let's recap one more time. My list is, well, how should I do this? Lekkerimaki, number 3. Number 2, Maddie Savoy. Number 1 is Frank Nazar. Mike?
Yeah, for me, I wanted Lekkerimaki, Brad Lambert, or Cutter Gauthier. But right. If he's there, I will fall out of my chair. Frank the Tank Nazar, the third. It's not a Detroit Red Wing. I really feel like a lot of these centers are going to go boom, 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 and put the top. And my God, Yzerman's going to fall into another large defenseman with David Jiricek. And then because Yzerman's board is usually not what the rest of us think, in some capacity, Nathan Gauthier, the 6'3", all situations player, may find himself at number 8. So absolute madness. But I think it's probably going to be Frank.
All right, everybody, let's sail off into the sunset. Thanks for coming aboard. Justin, you're late, but I wish you would show up earlier. We've been going for an hour and 12 minutes. So yeah, let's sail off. Everybody hit those like buttons now on YouTube. Subscribe if you guys had a tiny bit of fun. And of course, on Spotify, you can rate us. We'd really appreciate that. And Apple Podcasts, subscribe, rate, and review. Mike, we jumped into, what was it? For the USA this past week for our LaLonde episode, we jumped into the top 50 hockey podcasts. I was pretty happy with that.
Your faces, number 51. Suck it! We're coming for you, 49.
All right. We'll see you guys. Hopefully I'll see you guys in a couple of days, but we'll definitely see you guys next week for our next show. All right. Everyone have a great night.